Hello, guys, and welcome back to Chris Baraka and family. So, there is quite a lot that they are not talking about when it comes to this Bishop TD Jakes lawsuit. That is why in this video, this is going to be a very detailed video that we are going actually to have a breakdown of that lawsuit, every part, and just to have a look at all the different angles towards it, and just to play back a specific prophecy that was given in the year 2022 from the Master's Voice prophecy that is celestial, and just see, is it a prophecy already in action, or what exactly is happening? You know, just the other day we saw Bishop T.D. Jakes almost collapsing right there at the pulpit, and the lawyer, that is Bishop T.D. Jakes' lawyer, made a comment and suggested that the lawsuits that have been going on probably could be the reason, just because of all the stress and everything, could be the reason why we saw that happen to Bishop T.D. Jakes. Because it's quite true that it's not quite an easy thing. It's quite a heavy, heavy lawsuit. And also the shame that comes to this, if just in case the other side gets to win this. So let us just get to watch this. There is a lady who's breaking this down in very good detail. I'm not really sure about her name, but if you are, please just write her name right there in the comment section. Let us give her a flowers, because this is quite an amazing breakdown that she's done. So this is what I want us to have a look at. Let us follow through, and then after she's done analyzing this, is the best time that I'll just come in and then just share different opinions about this. So let's get into it.
I'm not a lawyer, but y'all remember the TD Jakes lawsuit? The one that he filed back in like November of 2024 against another pastor. The short recap is TD Jakes filed a defamation lawsuit against this man whose name is Dwayne Youngblood because of an interview that Youngblood did with Larry Reed Live. TD Jakes lawsuit, the one that he filed back in like November of 2024 against another pastor. The short recap is TD Jakes filed a defamation lawsuit against this man whose name is Dwayne Youngblood because of an interview that Youngblood did with Larry Reed Live. In the interview, Youngblood said that when he was a teenager, TD Jakes tried to kiss him and then later said he wanted to have an intimate relationship with him. Are you remembering that? So let's talk about it. First of all, Youngblood's attorney for this case is Tyrone Blackburn. And if you're trying to figure out where do you know the name Tyrone Blackburn, it's probably from one of Diddy's cases. Tyrone Blackburn represents a few of the plaintiffs who are suing Diddy. And in particular, he represents the producer, Rodney Lil Rod Jones. And Lil Rod's lawsuit was the lawsuit that had all of those footnotes with the ridiculous hints, like the one that said Philadelphia rapper that dated. Okay, so now that Blackburn is on board, he, on behalf of Youngblood, has filed a response to TD Jakes' defamation lawsuit. And that response was a motion to dismiss based on Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute. Youngblood lives in Pennsylvania. That's why it was filed there. So this anti-SLAPP statute is a law that was created to basically protect free speech. The law says that speech or expressions made regarding matters of public concerns or public importance are protected or immune from being the reason that someone sues you. And if a person does sue you over this protected free speech and you can show that it's protected free speech, the burden then shifts to the plaintiff or the person who filed the lawsuit to prove to the court why this lawsuit is not based on free speech. In the end, if the judge agrees in saying that the lawsuit was based on free speech, the plaintiff then has to pay all of your attorney and court fees. Hopefully you followed that, because I say all of that to say that Dwayne Youngblood says that this lawsuit should be dismissed because it is based on free speech. He goes into more detail and gives 3 specific reasons. First, he says that although he did mention the incident with TD Jakes in the interview that he did with Larry Reed Live, it was only a small portion of a very long interview where he was highlighting things like systemic abuse, institutional accountability, and the misuse of power by religious leaders, all of which, according to him, are matters of public concern and importance. Secondly, Youngblood says that this should be dismissed because TD Jakes is a public figure, and in order for celebrities or public figures to sue for defamation, they have to prove that the defamation was done with malice. Malice meaning the person had to defame them, knowing or likely knowing that what they were saying was not true, and they still chose to say it anyway. Think like Cardi B and Tasha K. So in this particular instance, Youngblood says that not only is what he said actually true, but he is providing affidavits from 5 different people who all say that Youngblood told them the same story and has kept that same story for the last 40 years.
Whoa.
And the last reason that Youngblood says that this should be dismissed is because he says people talking about TD Jakes' alleged misconduct is not new news. The motion says that social media platforms and investigative reports have brought to light allegations of grooming, abuse, and exploitation involving TD Jakes. And then the lawsuit includes a number of articles and references to TikTok to support this claim. The doc specifically says, it is clear from these articles that plaintiff Jakes has been the topic of discussion in the public for several years prior to his interview with Larry Reid on October 28, 2024. So for those reasons and a few others, Youngblood says that this lawsuit should be dismissed and he wants TD Jakes to pay all of his attorney and court fees. And then before he goes, he requests that the court allow him
That's diabolical.
the ability to file a cross complaint against TD Jakes and TD Jakes' son, Jermaine Jakes. Y'all knew TD Jakes had a son? For a quote, social media threat that was sent by Jermaine Jakes on November 3rd, 2024. Social media threat. According to Dwayne Youngblood, shortly after he did his interview with Larry Reid Live, Jermaine Jakes sent him a threatening DM which stated, quote, "You might be in dangerous territory, Dwayne, ..
Wow.
So Dwayne Youngblood wants to sue TD Jakes and his son for intentional infliction of emotional distress and harassment regarding this alleged threat. Oh, and the last thing is, remember I told you that Dwayne included affidavits from people who say Dwayne told them this same story for the last 40 years? One of those affidavits was from Dwayne's older brother, whose name is Richard Youngblood. And Richard claims that TD Jakes tried to assault him too. In Richard's affidavit, he says, quote, he, being Jake, secured a room with 2 beds in it, and we went to the room for the night. That night, while I was laying in my bed, I felt Elder Jakes climb into my bed. He pressed his body against mine and asked, Youngblood, do you feel that? As he was pressing it against my backside. I, meaning Richard, got up out of the bed in complete shock as he also got up from the opposite side and met me. He grabbed me by my arms and pulled me to him and started trying to kiss me. At this point, I cannot believe what is happening to me. Okay, so that's all on Youngblood's motion to dismiss. But after he filed it, TD Jakes responded. A 562-page package response.
My
and did I read it?
Lord.
Yes. So here we go. Let's talk about it. Jakes' response starts off saying that the allegations Dwayne made about him are completely false. And he highlights that shortly after Dwayne's interview on Larry Reid Live, Dwayne sent him a $6 million demand letter. I don't think I've ever seen a demand letter because I don't have enough money for anybody to demand anything from me. So if you also haven't seen one, here you go. The letter.
Hold on a second. My firm, Bishop Jakes. My firm has been retained by Dwayne Youngblood regarding harm visited, upon him by Bishop Thomas Dexter Jakes. Respondent, the nature of Mr. Youngblood's concerns, unwanted sexual harassment and assault. This letter is intentionally void of the graphic details. The purpose of this letter is to encourage the parties to resolve this matter quickly and privately for settlement purposes only. The opening statement or the opening settlement demand is $6 million. The demand is negotiable.
Says, quote, the purpose of this letter is to encourage the parties to resolve this matter quickly and privately. For settlement purposes only, the opening settlement demand is $6 million. The demand is negotiable. The letter goes on to say, you have 7 days from the date of this letter to accept this offer of private resolution. If we do not hear from you by November 23rd, 2024, we will view your silence as a rejection of this offer and proceed to file suit without delay. So he was threatening his own lawsuit. Also, to put this in context of a timeline, as we just read, November 23rd was the deadline for TD Jakes to either pay the $6 million or Dwayne Youngblood was going to file a lawsuit. November 24th, the next day, was a Sunday, and that's the day TD Jakes had that health issue on stage at church. Y'all remember that? And then the following day, November 25th, is the day TD Jakes filed his defamation lawsuit against Youngblood. Okay, now back to the response. So TD Jakes says that Youngblood's anti-SLAPP motion to dismiss should be denied because, number one, the law isn't even in effect yet. He says until the Pennsylvania Supreme Court acts to create anti-SLAPP motions, they do not exist in Pennsylvania. And even if they were in effect, TD Jakes and his attorneys say that they wouldn't apply in federal court. Apparently, there are some federal rules of civil procedure that conflict with the anti-SLAPP statutes, and therefore the federal rules would override in this case, which was filed in a federal court. And then on top of all of that, TD Jakes and his attorneys say that if the anti-SLAPP rules did apply, this isn't an anti-SLAPP case. They say it's a legitimate case and they have met the requirements required for it to proceed. Jakes' response goes on to say that Youngblood is a known liar, and they pull a 2015 quote from a judge who presided over one of Dwayne Youngblood's probation violation hearings. Did I mention that part? Dwayne Youngblood is a convicted felon and registered offender. He has been convicted of assault, the corruption of minors, among other things, and some of his victims include children that he pastored and mentored while he was the pastor of a church. At that hearing, the judge said, quote, Youngblood has lied and has scammed, and he has conned me from the day he stood in front of me 7 years earlier. I have been misled. I have been deceived. I have been actually lied to by Youngblood. My goodness. TD Jakes also highlights that Dwayne Youngblood claims that their interaction happened in 1986. Specifically, Youngblood claims that TD Jakes told him that if Youngblood performs favors for him when he's in town, Jakes would take care of him for the rest of his life. But TD Jakes says there's no way that that could have happened because in the 1980s, he says he was living in crushing poverty and could barely afford to take care of himself. So there's no way he was offering to take care of Dwayne Youngblood. TD Jakes also says that these are not just false statements, but they were made maliciously, which again is a requirement when public figures file defamation lawsuits. Jakes says that Youngblood hatched a plan with Larry Reid Live to essentially get money from him and harm his reputation. And then toward the end of the response, TD Jakes says that cross complaint that Youngblood says he wants to file, he can't even do that because a cross complaint can only be brought against a defendant or co-defendants in a case. And because TD Jakes' son is not listed as a co-defendant on this case, it wouldn't be considered a cross complaint. And in addition to that, based on Youngblood's version of this DM exchange, he never includes TD Jakes as having been involved. So he's saying you wouldn't be suing me and you can't sue my son because he's not a defendant. So this isn't a cross complaint. Now with this response, TD Jakes includes some exhibits and affidavits of his own. There's also an affidavit from TD Jakes' son, reference to that alleged threatening DM. Jermaine says, quote, on the afternoon of November 3rd, 2024, I was looking at my social media feed and noticed an advertisement promoted by the Larry Reid Live show podcast for an interview with Dwayne Youngblood labeled The Abused Becomes the Abuser. I was immediately concerned that Dwayne Youngblood might be putting himself in harm's way unknowingly by involving himself with Larry Reid. Based on my personal experience, Larry Reid's podcasts create controversy that can be very destructive to people's lives. Certainly, such has been my experience with Reid's podcasting, targeting and attacking my father over a period of years. That is the context in which on November 3rd, 2024, I sent a message to Dwayne Youngblood. It was a cautionary warning to someone I know, Dwayne, to avoid Larry because my experience is that Larry Reid distorts facts and is not truthful. I had not talked to or seen Dwayne in over 30 years. However, I knew Dwayne from growing up in West Virginia. When I sent the message to Dwayne, I had not seen the podcast, so I did not know what had been stated or that my father was the focus of the discussion. There was no reason for me to say anything that I intended or meant to be threatening. Dwayne responded to my message practically immediately, stating that he received the message and, quote, it was noted. Ciao. That was a lot. The exhibits attached to the response also includes Youngblood's entire criminal history, his mugshots and transcripts from some of his criminal hearings. There's also mugshots and criminal documentation for some of the people who provided affidavits for Youngblood, because Jake says that they are convicted felons as well, and screenshots of Youngblood's website, because according to Jake's, Youngblood did this because he had recently gotten out of jail, so he needed a story to transition him from this convicted felon to this inspirational speaker about abuse. So that's where we are. That's the latest on this lawsuit. It'll be up to the judge to determine if TD Jakes' lawsuit can continue on or not. And it feels like it's gonna keep getting messy.
Next, there will be
Yo, so before I get to play that video by Celestial, the master's voice, first of all, just everything that is being mentioned in these lawsuits, everything that is going on, is just like, it's like a soap opera or something, the twist and everything. We just can't wait to see how this turns up, because clearly there is just so much going on. Another thing that's quite shocking is that the number of court cases right now that a lot of pastors have, most of them, they're suing on defamation. For you to be able to sue on a defamation case, definitely there have to be damages. And most of the times, in my own opinion, just from most of these cases, it is always financial damage. Maybe the ministry is not making as much as it used to make before you came out saying that, all the allegations. Like, even if we have a look at this defamation case here from Prophet LOVY, let's just play this.
This is a defamation suit, but you have to understand this. In the next few days, there are criminal charges that are also coming. It takes more strength to be quiet and to be silent until the right time. I am a fighter first. I am somebody that came to this country when I was 17 years old.
You're saying you're a fighter. You're no fighter. You have no spine. I dealt with your minions for a year.
I want you to understand the reason why I haven't posted my little brother's text messages. Trust me, if I wanted to be petty, I would be extremely messy.
It's not a legal, listen, it's not a legal battle. Everything I've said, I have the receipts of.
Because I know him more than you guys know. You guys know the version I presented to you. And I'm not being petty. You didn't know him until I made him known to you.
You said you gave me a platform? You're a liar. I just posted on my last video, speaking at TBN. Did you take me to TBN? That was before I ever met you.
I believe he's a man of God. I will never say he's a false prophet. I will never say that he's not a man of God, he's a wizard, he's a warlock, that is petty and stupid. I would never say that about him. Why? Because I know he's calling before God.
My former friend is into witchcraft. Lovy's and he's into witchcraft.
It's painful because this is somebody I love. I love his parents still. I adore his children. How do you think my son, who called you uncle, feels like when you claim that I sacrificed children? That you were pregnant and then there was a sacrifice of a child. Now that's a problem for me. They most likely may end up in jail.
You can't take my preachings and my conviction and take me to court for my preachings and my convictions. First of all,
I pray you get the best attorneys because most likely you are definitely going to jail. Definitely.
Whoa. Yo, so this here is just another one, this is another one. Clearly, there's just a lot of defamation cases. There's what this side is saying, there's what the other side is saying. So let's check out this prophecy here.
Next, there will be scandals among the high and the mighty. So I saw a row of thrones seated in high positions. Earthquake hit those thrones. They started to shake, and people began to fall out of the thrones in public and shameful falls. The Lord said that Bishop TD Jakes will have one of the biggest scandals of all time in the Christian church, one of the biggest shaming falls before God finally judges him in taking his life. The Lord said this man is not a straight man. He is not a heterosexual man. His name will be named by the people he has been with. His scandal will involve his sexual orientation. And God says that this is when people will finally see who they have been following with a lot of these pastors and spiritual leaders. So this prophecy came before the other one. This one is September 1st, that the Lord first said that on top of being a false prophet, on top of misleading people, on top of, he called it financial impropriety, which means that there is severe questions about what happens to money in the potter's house. He says that this man is a wolf in sheep's clothing, that this man is a Freemason, and that he is brotherhood. This is what the Lord revealed months ago in the false prophet's prophecy. But now in this live call, God brought out that this man is not interested in women, but is bent towards males. But not only that, has harmed underage youths and boys. And God says that this sex scandal will be named by the people he has been with. The males are going to bring out, he says, proof. The evidence this bishop will be fighting is hard evidence. And God says he will spend considerable time, considerable energy, considerable power, and considerable money to suppress that evidence so that it does not come out in the legal battles that will follow. But God said that we are going into an era where the evidence will get a chance to speak.
So if you get to listen to that prophecy 3 years later, because right now we are in 2025, that prophecy was given in 2022, but also even the specific one I've played is from the year 2022 in September. So if you get to listen to that prophecy and just to have a look at everything at the turn of events, clearly it's like it's a prophecy that is already in motion. It's a prophecy that is already in motion. So on a later video, I'll just go in depth. I'll just go in depth because there's so much to speak about this, but I want to let this video just to end at this point because there's a lot of information in this video. So we'll let it slide at this point, but subscribe if you haven't. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Don't forget to hit on that like button. Stay blessed and see you on the next one.